Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where and when you are listening to or indeed watching this video. Welcome to the second in our series of 3 recorded discussions on the theme of sales and operations planning. Our goal throughout has been to explore S&OP by discussing the practical implications of implementing and managing S&OP in different kinds of organizations and operations. In our first session, we explored the challenges faced, either in the implementation or the execution of S&OP. To view or listen to that conversation, you will see a link either on screen or in the comments section below or on the side, depending on your screen layout. So let me welcome back Jeremy Roberts from Ebro, Mike Key from Pearson Engineering, and from IT Consulting, Brian McLaren. Once again, we would like to tap into their valuable real-world experiences. In the next and third and final discussion, we're going to be asking Tim Richardson, the CEO of IT Consulting, who along with Brian, to reflect on some of the discussions and points raised, and to see how that relates to the experiences we've had seen in different kinds of organizations. So gentlemen, to start with today, I want to really, start to explore a little bit about what are the key elements that we see as being required in making S&OP a success. In other words, how to make it effective, whether that be in its implementation or its operation. So Brian, maybe I could start with you and just get, from your experiences, maybe give us a kind of top 3, top 4, top 5, whatever, what you see the key elements are. And then maybe I'll open it up to Mike and Jeremy to reflect on their experiences directly within their organizations.
My own personal view on this is it's getting the people element of it right. So the S&OP process has pretty much got a standard 4 steps to go through. The problem is everybody wants to be part of every discussion. And the challenge here is get the right people to attend the right meeting. And by that, it's they must have the skill set to bring the knowledge and the authority to make the decision. There's no free ride. If you bring people along that don't have any of those, they'll undermine your process. So that's my number one. The people element of, it's not the title you've got, but more the skills and the authority that you bring to each of the meetings. So in the demand meeting, it's different from the supplier review. The exec and the pre-exec need different people. And then the other element of it is, are you clear about what it is you're trying to achieve? So I quote from one of my old bosses. It will make him smile because it really confused me the first time he asked me. It's how do you know you're winning? And it made me go, oh, I don't actually know what does winning mean. He went, well, that's for you to answer. And I've stolen that with absolute pride now. Of as a business, how do you know you're winning? Beyond we make money. But what is it you want to be? How do you want to be famous? And that will then align your S&OP process. Of once you know what it is you're trying to achieve, then you can align all your metrics and everything else and anything you want to measure. And they go, if it's not taking me towards that objective, then we shouldn't be doing it. And those are I'll just stick with those two, the people element of getting the right people doing the right thing at the right time with the right authority, and making sure the business is clear of what it's trying to achieve out of its S&OP process. All of that will cascade down and give you all the other elements of it, of which meetings doing what, who needs to be where, what the metrics are. But let's go with those two as the foundation.
Excellent, Brian. Thank you. So Mike, I guess first question to you would be, A, do they resonate with you? And B, what would you consider to be additional key elements of success?
Yeah, certainly what Brian said there. I think it's so important with every process. You need good KPIs around it, that are aligned with what is it that we're trying to achieve. Is it the S&OP process that's going to increase sales, shorten lead times, etc.? But most importantly, avoid the chaos, so everybody knows what are the priorities. I also think it's really important for success is that there are good data sets available, and that going into the executive review, that the relative pre-work to support that meeting is done. so that there are several what if scenarios. It could be, what is the cost if we work additional overtime versus hiring people? That could be one decision you could put forward. It could be capital investment that is required. Or it could be that we say to the customer, sorry, we cannot meet the demand that you require in this time frame. So those are the scenarios that need to be put forward. So it's so important, I believe, that that pre-work with the relevant people is performed, and that that's done at the right cadence to support the S&OP meeting. And one final thing that Brian said in an earlier session, you've got to just keep repeating the cycle. It's got to be every month. It can't be, it only takes place this month and then we cancel it for the following month and do it after that. It's got to be religious. It's the last Friday of every month the S&OP meeting takes place to instill that discipline into the process.
Thank you, Mike. And Jeremy, maybe you could again either reflect on what Brian and Mike said, and or hopefully add some elements from your perspective.
Yeah, I think coming back to what Brian said about the people element, we found that to be absolutely key. Getting the right people in the right meeting. We had, as we were before we actually got into development, running the S&OP process. Going live as such in the preparation stages and development of that, we had challenges from people who wanted to be in, as Brian said, wanted to be in every meeting because, they wanted to know and they felt it was important. And we had to go through that process of explaining, what roles each person played and being clear about rules of engagement for each meeting and what the purpose was from each meeting in the cycle. And that was, it was good to do that and then to be able to explain that clarity. And I think building a little comment from Mike's I think some people still had the feeling that I'll go along with this and I'll see how it progresses. And actually, after a number of cycles, they saw the benefits from doing that they didn't need to be in the demand review. They only had to be in the supply review because, that's where the process demanded their input and expertise was that part of the process. So I think that was key. And I kind of another piece around even linked to people and disciplines was just attendance at meetings and making sure that if, I don't know, a sales head wasn't going to be there, he had a deputy there who was empowered to make decisions. Because we had a couple of occasions where someone sat there and went, we haven't got someone from that particular team in there, and actually we need to make a decision. We couldn't move forward without that, so, and I think that took through a number of cycles to make sure. And again, it came back to Brian's point about authority, and particularly the authority invested in Derek, who is and Kevin, who is a couple of the other conductors in the other businesses, that they had the authority really to pick up people who are more senior in the business to say, sorry, you didn't send a deputy, and next time round you need to send a deputy and make sure he can or she can make a decision on behalf of your team, and having that there. So those were some of the key things, which were people related, and making sure that people who were invested in the process. I think picking up what Mike said about data, making sure the data was correct, that you're not sitting in a meeting second guessing the data is right, and making sure the pre-work's done, that we get into the meeting, all of that pre-work's done, that we're confident that the data is as accurate as possible, and right as well, and getting on through that and repeat. And as I think we've said before, repeating the cycle, because you learn each cycle, what to improve on, and reflecting. I think that was a key thing that Brian brought to us, was at the end of each meeting to review, particularly for the process, the conductor, to review what went well, what didn't go so well, how do we need to improve and make it better for next time going forward. Is something which I think is really important.
Cool, thank you, Jeremy. And just as all three of you were sharing your experiences and insights there. I was writing down two words that weren't said, but actually I felt were kind of coming out here. And one of the words was trust, in terms of both in data and in each other and your fellow people in the organization. And the other one was education. And I just wondered if anybody could maybe not build on that, but maybe either agree with me or disagree with me. You see, it feels like they become important themes.
Yeah, I'd certainly echo what you said there about education. I think one of the things that you see S&OP do is bring together people who do not typically work together. And you actually bring together the whole organization from customer through to delivery execution. And typically you see in many organizations silos. You may have good relationships, but you never truly understand what are the requirements of each of those people left and right of you. And S&OP brings those people together. By bringing people together, you educate one another on the challenges that you are facing, and together you resolve those challenges for the greater good of the organization. So that's what I get out of S&OP. And it goes back to this theme. It's about people. It really is about getting the right people in the room and connecting them together.
Yeah, I would build on what Mike said. Everybody goes about, oh, it's about getting consensus. And you go, no, it's not about consensus. It's about making the decision. Consensus generally is finding the least offensive answer that doesn't upset anybody. But it might not give you what you want. Sometimes we picked up on it previously of winning a sales order that means building a new factory or buying a new machine might be too big an investment, and maybe timing's not right. Well done, commercial team, but we can't invest today. We don't have that. So it's about bringing everybody together. And the other one I wanted to pick up on is Mike's one about data and bringing the right information. This is about understanding your culture and just people in general. If you go to the exec meeting with one option, it feels like you're telling them what to do. And we don't like being told what to do. Even if you create the perception of go with three options and one of them is very obvious, so everybody knows what to do, but it feels like we have an input to the decision and we're making the decision as opposed to being forced upon us. It's a cultural thing that I've found in all over the world, that if you tell them what to do, everybody kind of pushes back. But give them the options with risks and opportunities. Generally, we all make the right decision for the business of going, yeah, we should do that. And everybody walks away feeling they've had their input and feeling they've been heard. And the business is then decided on. So I would reiterate Mike's point there about don't tell the exec what to do. Give them the options and let them make the decisions on their part, and therefore they will feel more engaged and ownership of the decision they've made.
Good. I think Paul, you mentioned trust, and I think that that trust has built as we've gone through the process. I think as people have gained confidence in the process, in what the process delivers, and I've certainly noticed that amongst all the participants in the process, that the confidence grows. That actually, as we follow the process, do the right thing, make the decisions, have that evaluation of options, that people start to see the benefits, and that trust grows through it, and you don't have people second guessing as things and the decisions there. It doesn't solve all the issues, and there's still lots of frustrations that come out, but that's certainly been a benefit that we've seen. Yeah.
And this is probably too much of a philosophical question for today, but I often wonder whether trust and the ability to collaborate is a prerequisite to implementing S&OP, or whether actually S&OP is something that can help you build that within an organization, again, with that perseverance. I guess I wanted to ask another question, because we've identified some quite key elements in terms of, this is what makes S&OP a success. I guess one of the challenges then is just making sure those elements are in place. How do you actually ensure those elements are in place? And in some cases, how do you hold people account to make sure that those elements are delivered either as individuals or as a group. So I just wanted to get your reflections as leaders of S&OP about how you go about making sure people and or process are held to account.
Yeah, good question. I think what I have found that works very well is that you need an executive sponsor, and that person has to be relentless. And you typically find them in the organization where they do hold everybody accountable and create that discipline. And that is so important, that there is that leader at the top of the organization that signals to the organization, this is important. You have to attend or send a deputy, as Jeremy said. It's not acceptable to turn up without the relevant data or the relevant scenario planning. So it's so important, like I said, that process discipline is instilled into the organisation. And then, as you said, it builds that trust. I truly believe S&OP creates trust within the organisation. I know from my personal experience, you typically see with any sales team a hockey stick effect, where all the sales will come in Q4 or the last quarter of the financial planning cycle. So therefore you are naturally distrusting, and you're like, why would I believe that you are saying there's an 80% chance of winning this order when everything is just stacked into Q4? So you then, by having the right people in the room, start to understand the challenges that it may take 3 quarters to get that customer order across the line. But likewise, the sales team start to understand that it may take 3 quarters to invest in new capital equipment and bring it on stream as well, and that we can't just deliver that order next week. So I said that trust, education, understanding, collaboration, all comes from the S&OP process.
No, I think, as I said before, we've seen that. And I think part of that as well, of the accountability, is having some measures in place which also enable us to start to make sure that we're hitting those KPIs that we set for ourselves through the process, and that builds the accountability as well. And I think it came a point that you made earlier, Paul, around education up front. I think what helped us a lot in the process was, as we went into the process, we spent quite a bit of time thinking about what is it that you need to be coming to the meeting prepared with. And so there were almost, there was a set of expectations. Brian described them as your rules of engagement for each meeting. And we it wasn't kind of a charter sign up for it, but everyone was clear on what is it that you knew you had to bring to that, and you were going to be held accountable in the meeting. And and I think as well, there's just a natural accountability that comes through that, where you don't want to arrive at that meeting, and if you're a supply planner and you haven't done the prep work before the meeting, and you sit there going, well, I don't know how we're going to meet this demand, and your other supply planners have done it, and everyone's clear. It just, that natural accountability comes through that meeting, through that, and that's important as well.
Yeah, there's something there about the public nature of that kind of process. Allows people to hold people to account mutually, rather than a kind of top-down thing. Yeah.
And I think what Mike said, I think coming back then, and we talked in the previous thing, was that top-level sponsorship. We've got the MDs, because we've done it in 3 businesses, are all committed to it, and they've all bought into it and they've seen the benefit, and they hold the various teams accountable, to making sure the process works.
Thank you.
I think what I found very, very beneficial is outward communication to the general population within the facility, so they understand why decisions have been made. That may have been made, behind closed doors as such, with the appropriate stakeholders, but so the wider business know why those decisions were being made. So I think it's also important to share the outcome of the S&OP meeting as to why we've taken a particular direction as well, then the whole organisation is aligned behind that decision. Because people see those little snippets of information, they hear the whispers in the corridors that there's potentially a huge customer order coming and we need to make changes within the organisation. So I think it was so important. I really saw the benefit of that publishing of the information, whether it was in newsletters or on the website, etc., and getting everybody behind the process. And I think we touched upon it earlier, having KPIs as well to show that actually the S&OP process was not only delivering improved customer performance, but also internal metrics as well, whether that be around inventory holding, reduced cycle times, etc.
No, that's a really interesting point. And I guess part of the initial question was around how you make S&OP kind of the heartbeat of your organization. And if the outcome of S&OP is the comms that go out to the whole organization around these are the plans for the next quarter, the next year, etc., that's a real good sign that S&OP has become your heartbeat because it's driving the comms as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Brian, any final thoughts and reflections then in terms of those key elements?
It's picking up about the very first one that was said about exec ownership. So I use either the conductor of an orchestra or the military. Roman legions is the Roman legion, the legate, the general makes the decision. That's the exec. But everybody knows to actually make it happen is done by the centurions. They're the execution element of this. So if you take that analogy into your S&OP processes, it's the S&OP conductor, the chief whip, the chief of staff, regimental sergeant major. It's that kind of, they will get stuff done. They're quite happy talking with people with stars on their shoulder, but they are very confident in their own abilities and that delegated authority. They will go and make it happen. And that's the person that you need to make sure your process is effective. So long as they've got the C-suite backing them up, that's another key role. My own learning is it's not just the exec ownership, but it's having that your conductor to be able to drive this through and holding people to account. And part of his role is also the education as well of what's the consequence of not doing stuff. So that would be the one I would add in there. And possibly another one I've learned sort of later in life is around that internal monitoring, benchmarking. It's kind of like having a personal trainer at the gym. They tell you, don't go and weigh yourself every week. You'll never notice the difference and you'll get frustrated and disillusioned. S&OP is the same. Go and check it on a regular basis, but not every month, because things take time to change. So, but at least once a quarter, maybe every 6 months, go and against your checklist, have you improved? Have you got things that now that you didn't have previously? Is attendance better? And you can use that to show we are moving in the right direction. And it goes up in that last point around the communication. You can show we were all red, we had nothing. And now look at it, we've got some stuff. We've got lots of ambers, maybe even a green one, and just show that. So it goes back to the comms, not just on the output, but on the transition. So again, so the gym personal trainer, take the picture before you start and take pictures twice a year to show how you got leaner, fitter, stronger, more effective at what you would do. So that would be the two I would add in of make sure you have that chief of staff and conductor in place and monitor at a regular interval to show that you're actually making a difference.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brian, and thank you to all. And a special thank you to Brian for reminding us that we do indeed think about the Roman Empire at least once a day. Thank you. Great. So thank you. It's perhaps not surprising that our discussions have looped back once again to those questions of people, buy-in and behaviour. I'm certainly not surprised. So I would like to take this opportunity to point you to our free operations planning optimizer diagnostic. You should be able to see a link either on screen or in the comments section below or on the side of your screen. As mentioned earlier, our next and final discussion in this series will be more of a reflection on some of the discussions and points raised through the first two sessions. We will also perhaps try and widen out the debate out to consider different kinds of organisations and situations in relation to implementing and executing S&OP. So once again, my huge thanks to Jeremy, Mike and Brian for contributing to these two sessions. And thank you for watching or listening. And of course, comments are welcomed. Thank you and goodbye.